We just got our first full look at the brand new Intamin Hot Racer coming to Walibi Rhône-Alpes in France. Mahuka was officially announced in fall 2023. We received a couple graphics showcasing what this attraction might look like, but now, here in January 2024, a few months before it's set to open, we received a full animation showcasing the theming of the area, a little bit more of the layout, some of the different elements that we can expect, and everything just looks great. I'm really impressed with what they've come up with here, so let's break it all down. Now, first off, Mahuka is going in the exotic island section of the park as part of a 10 million euro investment, which for those of you in the US, that's just under 11 million US dollars. The land has this really nice Polynesian theme, so this is going to go right alongside it. Very similar to what Walibi Belgium has done over at their park with the Tiki Waka Gerstlauer bobsled coaster, which that ended up being one of my favorite themed lands of that park. And you could definitely tell that the one at Walibi Rhône-Alpes was lacking, like it needed just a little bit more. And so I think this is going to fit right in. I love what we're seeing here. Mahuka in Hawaiian means to escape, so I think that's why you have all these ancient ruins here. You have the crashed Jeep out front. I guess the idea is that you've discovered these ruins and then maybe the locals are after you and you gotta get out of there. We have 2 tire-driven launches, a total of 3 inversions, the signature of which is this inverted top hat, almost acting like a stall, and it is directly underneath a top hat that goes right over it. So think about Full Throttle at Six Flags Magic Mountain. That's a premier coaster. Did the same sort of thing back in 2013. In this case, the 2 sets of tracks do not share a joint spine, but they are connected by some small supports that hold them together. Really cool design, and you as a guest are going to be able to walk directly underneath this. So as you look straight up, you'll see riders flying overhead. That top hat that you see is the highest point at about 59 feet, or for those of you over in Europe, that's about 18 meters. Top speed 42 miles per hour, or about 68 kilometers per hour. So the stats aren't really anything impressive, but I think Intamin has really shown over the years that you don't need impressive stats to have a great ride. And with this immersive environment, it's going to be a full package experience. Now, before we get into the layout, we have to address, this is the second ever Intamin Hot Racer to open up around the world. And after the first one opened, it wasn't super well received. So I think there are a lot of eyes on this thing to see how it goes over. For those who might be unfamiliar, Big Dipper opened up at Luna Park Sydney at the end of 2021. It has a lot of similar ideas with 2 tire-driven launches, couple inversions, that single rail track. You could tell definitely taking some inspiration from RMC with their single rail track that they debuted in 2018. Although this is definitely a different approach, you can still see that this thing has rails. And yeah, the track is one solid structure, but it almost looks like a regular track that they just filled in the gaps, as opposed to Raptor track is like one steel beam. So I don't know, take it for what you will, but I had the opportunity to experience Big Dipper last year, and I was not a huge fan of it. The biggest problem being that the thing is one of the shakiest rides I've probably ever experienced. And I believe it really comes down to the trains. I think it's gotta be something to do with the weight distribution. Maybe the top part is heavier than the bottom, that's why it shakes back and forth. Like the front was bearable, but when you sat in the back, you are just rattling back and forth. But with it being a prototype, things happen. There are gonna be problems. I'd be interested in knowing if the folks at Walibi Rhône-Alpes had the opportunity to experience Big Dipper before they purchased this ride. Because I think if I were in charge and I had to choose between an Intamin single rail or an RMC single rail, no contest, I would go with the RMC. Which interestingly enough is exactly what Walibi Holland is doing. They're getting dueling RMCs soon. One thrill coaster intertwined with a family coaster. Should be really cool. Contrast that to this one, I really think it's gonna be family thrill, and hopefully they've been able to take a second look at those trains, do the upgrades needed to make this thing smooth. And if they're able to do that, then I think this is actually going to be a really fun ride, because the layout is not bad at all. When you dispatch out of the station, you're going to turn to the left and you're going to start up your first launch. You pass straight into this like cutback or inverted top hat, whatever you want to call it. It looks like you go through it rather quickly, so I don't expect any hang time there. As you twist out of it, you have a low to the ground speed hump and then a rapid fire over a section of track twisting to the left. Now, the animation that Walibi Rhône-Alpes released cuts back and forth between a couple different moments, so we don't have a full, unedited on-ride POV. There are some fan-made creations out there which kind of help fill in the gaps. All of the track work for this project has also been completely installed. So between that and the animations, we definitely have a good idea of what this ride is doing. But it looks like we have another twist to the side wrapping around this themed temple structure. In the official animation, it then cuts to our second inversion, which is set to fly through more of these Mayan-like ruins, and that's going to take place behind the station. But in between those 2 moments not shown in this video, it looks like we're going to have some good airtime pops. That comes in the form of a double down. Nothing too dramatic, just a gradual step down down, and that's when you hit your corkscrew, turn to the left, and then boost. I'm assuming this is when you're going to hit your max speed. That's when you'd be hitting your highest moment, so it would definitely make sense. I like this top hat because it banks slightly outward, so it should actually be a pretty cool sensation. You're only up there for a brief second, and this really isn't much of a drop. I'm not even sure the official angle of descent here, but it looks like you twist from the right directly into the left as you're descending. So if I had to guess, this won't have that traditional feeling of weightlessness that you get typically after you experience a drop. But from what I remember on Big Dipper, the airtime in general wasn't super strong. There were a few moments on that attraction where it tried to send you up out of your seat, but nothing really happened. Hopefully this one does it better. But it still won't be comparable to the airtime that you get on like the RMC Raptors, which are also much more extreme than this will be. So following that moment, we're going to have another traditional airtime hill, and then a section of ride that doesn't actually appear in the official animation at all. That's when you can see that we'll likely have some sort of stangle dive element, a twist from the left suddenly to the right, S-bending across the ground real low, another bank turn to the right, and then that's when you enter inversion number 3, a heartline roll, and that's what sends you into the brake run. I don't anticipate a super long experience, but I don't think it will feel short. It has enough moments to be a satisfying ride experience, and definitely a very different ride compared to the other attractions in the park. I mean, we're looking at a Gravity Group family coaster. This should be more extreme than that. A Gerstlauer Infinity coaster. That's going to be more extreme than this. And then like a Vekoma Boomerang. That should definitely be more intense than this. So I think it fits nicely in that family thrill department. I am interested in seeing how capacity goes for this thing, if it draws some really long lines. We're looking at about 2 trains, each holding 9 passengers. Of course, sitting in that single file line, you just have one restraint. It's an over-the-shoulder lap bar, the same as what you have on Big Dipper at Luna Park Sydney, and also identical to some Intamin multi-launch coasters that you have, such as Pantheon, Tutatis, etc., which are of course extremely comfortable. In my opinion, that was actually one of the best differences with this model compared to what RMC has done. But I think more so than some other new for 2024 coasters, this ride overall is just very intriguing to me because I think the concept is really cool, and if they pull it off, this should be a really strong addition. The theming at the other Walibi parks is really impressive, and the company that owns them has been pouring a lot of money into their parks. They also operate Parc Asterix and Belwarda. Those two have either received a big new addition or are receiving a big new addition, and so the constant investment and care put into the properties is just really positive to see. I fully anticipate this to be the most immersive attraction at the park, and I think it's going to really help put Walibi Rhône-Alpes on the map. Because when you typically think of European theme parks, Walibi Rhône-Alpes is not usually one that immediately comes to mind. But they've grown substantially in the past 10 years with the additions of like Timber and Mystic. I really think they're making a name for themselves, and so I know that absolutely this is going to be a park that I'm going to go back to one day, and I can't wait to experience this. So let me know down in the comments below, what do you think of Mahuka coming to Walibi Rhône-Alpes in France? If you agree with the points that I brought up, if you think there's anything I missed, and stay tuned for more here at Coaster Studios, and I'll see you next time.